Welcome back, everyone, to the W Sports Podcast. We hope you're excited because I know we are excited over here, and we have got our Super Bowl preview episode. So, Jimothy, myself, and alongside me, as always, is the one and only, the best co-host in the business, Tubby.
I'm excited, but I'm also very sad because football ends this weekend.
Yes. So, do you ever watch SNL?
Not really.
So you'll have to go on YouTube. There's a one-off video. It was their cold open a couple weeks ago during the championship weekend, and it was exactly that. It was like supposed to be Tony Romo and whoever his co-host was for the AFC Championship game, and they're like, "I'm just sad because this is the end of football." And they're like, "Well, we had the Super Bowl," and they're like, "Well, that doesn't count because everybody watches. Like, this is the last week we have for us." Go over to our guy friend's house and just hang out and talk. No.
It's the truth. I mean, I'm gonna try to get into the USFL or the UFL a little bit more this year because I do know a couple of guys that will be playing for a couple of the teams.
That's cool.
So maybe try to get a little bit more into it so I can watch them play. But man, if it's anything like it was last year.
Yeah, I hope it's not. But hey, if it like either way, I mean, I'm not gonna put you on the spot here, but we'll have to do some digging. Maybe one of them will come on the show. Just throwing it out there, give us their experience of the difference. Because give us a reason to really watch this new league because we want football and we are sad because it's gone until August.
Yeah, I mean, taking away football until August, and then we still have a few more weeks until baseball. So I mean, it's like, what are we supposed to do in between then?
NBA in the past, that's what it would be.
But do we really? I mean, nowadays, I'm good.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I think it was the Thunder. No, it was the Suns the other day. Put up 140 in regulation, won by 30. I just can't.
No, yeah. I mean, it gets ridiculous when you've got like 5, 6, 7, 8 guys like in like a 2 or 3 week span score, in the 50s, 60s, and you're like, okay, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, 100% it is. So here's what's crazy is we are in Super Bowl Sunday. It's Super Bowl week, whatever you want to call it. And the question came up because everything, if you've noticed, has gone to streaming, including a playoff game was streaming. And so someone asked Roger Goodell, will there ever be a Super Bowl that is only streamed? Like that's the only way to get it. Do you know what he said?
I don't know if I want to know the answer.
Well, the good news is his answer is not while I'm alive.
Okay, good.
And I think that's good news for us as fans because we definitely don't want to see that. But also good news because if he wants it, it's going to happen because the owners absolutely love Roger Goodell. That's why they paid him so much money and agreed to let him be the commish.
Yeah, and so that would just be terrible to throw the Super Bowl up on Amazon Prime or Peacock or something like that. That'd just be so dumb.
Yeah, so dumb. So that's the good news. Who are you more excited to see perform, Reba McEntire or Usher?
Oh, I'm a country guy, so give me Reba.
I cannot wait till Usher comes on and he does his greatest hits. He does, yeah, it's just one of his best songs. I hope he brings out all the guys on the song. It'll be so okay. So how about that? What's your go-to Super Bowl snack?
Ooh,
what are you gonna eat?
It depends on if we'll have it this year, but I'm a big 7-layer dip guy.
That's consistent with what you said last year. So
yeah,
that's what's true. Tubby does not mess around. He knows he sticks to what he knows.
Yeah. I mean, why change it up if it's so good?
If it is so good. What are you using? Chips, Doritos? What are you using?
Oh, chips. Chips. Tortilla chips.
As a classic because it goes with all the things in the layer dip. It makes sense.
Yep.
You can't use Cool Ranch. It would be a disaster.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything other than that, it's going to taste different. You got to have the tortilla chip.
Yeah. And now you can invest all of your finances into the said dip because neither of us are. I know we almost went to the Super Bowl. Average tickets start at $6,000 right now. Is that just because it's in Vegas or is that the new normal?
I honestly don't know. Like I saw it on the news today, and it's like a Buffalo Bills fan from Kansas City paid $6,000 so he could go to the Super Bowl. I'm like, why? You're in Kansas City. You're not a Chiefs fan. That's weird. On top, one, and then two, you're a Bills fan. Why are you buying tickets to the Super Bowl?
Because
it'd be Yeah, I mean, it'd be different if it was like somewhat close,
Yeah.
somewhat close to Buffalo, or or if just say it happened to be in Kansas City, and you're like, oh, I'm here, I might as well buy tickets. But no, you're gonna buy a $6,000 ticket. That's just for the ticket, not your hotel and your flight and everything out there. I'm like, that's just weird.
Yeah.
I get that other team fans go, but still, $6,000 to not even go watch your own team play in the Super Bowl. Eh.
So I think that's a great reason. I don't even think I could do it if it was my team. I think it'd be hard if it was like, yeah, we got you free tickets, but you had to pay for everything else. I'd be like, I would like to. I'm the guy who turned down tickets to a negative 30-degree game though, so maybe I'm not the right person
Sure.
to ask.
Yeah, no, I mean, still though, you're going to Vegas. Everything's upcharged right now because they're like, "Oh, Super Bowl's here. We can upcharge the rooms, and these restaurants they can upcharge food, stuff like that, because everyone's going to be there. They got to eat somewhere, so they got to stay somewhere. So everything's going to be even higher now. And then on top of that, I'm sure the flights there probably weren't really that cheap either because
Unless it's
Super
Spirit.
Bowl. Yeah,
Spirit
Spirit.
flies
Yeah.
there quite a bit. All right, so let's go ahead and how much get into the kind of some of the content here of this because we can go down a rabbit hole. I feel like just for the record, for mine, it's just a lot of snacky stuff. I don't have to have anything big. I don't need to have a pizza. A burger is fine, but like just get lots of snack stuff. I think that's what your 7-layer dip really leans itself towards. And if your mom's the one who's cooking or making the dip, I think it is going to be delicious.
Yeah, it's pretty bomb.
So how much do you hate it whenever they're like, all right, so Chiefs versus 49ers Super Bowl. Last time these two teams played was in the Super Bowl in 2020. How much and then they pull in that game in that circumstance and those two teams into what this game could look like. And like if it plays out. Are you one of those people who's agreeing with that? Or you're like, listen, that was Jimmy Garoppolo. It was Mouster, not CMC, and this is just a different team, right?
Yeah, absolutely. These are two drastically different teams.
Tyreek Hill's gone.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill's gone. I mean, the other playmakers that the Chiefs had on that offensive side really, you don't have much, besides Kelsey and Rashee Rice and Pacheco. And then you look at the other side. I mean, you've got guys like Ayuk who's really come into his own. Debo's playing really good. CMC, all these other guys defensive wise too. Yeah, and you got Brock Purdy compared to Jimmy Garoppolo, who, granted, whether or not we think Brock Purdy is an elite quarterback, we had this discussion last week, but he is, I think, a level up from Jimmy Garoppolo. So you've got better quarterback play, at least on paper, you would say, than you did the last time you played against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So all that, I'll toss it out, except for maybe some coaching things, just because for the Chiefs, you still got Spagnuolo and you still got Andy Reid there. So that's a big thing that they know the tendencies of Kyle Shanahan, and the defenses are typically the same. Even though Saleh, DeMeco Ryans and stuff aren't there anymore, it's still going to be the same type of defensive system because it's that Shanahan coaching tree.
Absolutely. But speaking of coaching tree, Eric Bieniemy looks like he is on his way out, and they're hiring Cliff Kingsbury, who just did a marvelous stand-up job in freaking Arizona. I don't understand that. I want Bieniemy to go ahead and come back. Be cool with it. It's fine by me. We'll have a little reunion here, but the stat line that Jimmy G put up in that Super Bowl, it's very, very similar to the one that I mentioned on last week's episode that Brock Purdy would have done with one play difference in that one. The only difference was Jimmy G still put up a touchdown. So anyway, I'm glad that we're on the same page. We're not taking this into consideration. I mean, it was Damian Williams is the big guy. If, everyone remembers that name. And then Emmanuel Sanders and Sammy Watkins were in this game. Wow. The NFL, these two teams, it is so different to see what it is like. And I don't think the 49ers in the last 4 years that they've prepped for this game to get back thought that it was going to be Brock Purdy. For sure, they thought it was going to be Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh, yeah. There's no one had this in the book going, yep, Brock Purdy's going to be the guy that leads us back to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
After they just spent the third pick in the draft on Trey Lance. So, yeah, they definitely were not planning on Brock Purdy being the guy to get him back to the promised land.
Absolutely. So, well, let's go ahead. We'll do some X Factor. Who's got the better position rankings? We're gonna start. If you're cool with it, let's go ahead and just start with the quarterbacks. I feel like that's a great place to start, and we'll get into some of the other details here. And some of them I think are gonna be kind of fun just to get into and see if we can push each other's buttons a little bit more here. But let's start with quarterback play. Who has got the upper hand? What a fun sentence here.
Right? I mean, is that even a question? I mean, you've got one guy that's made it to 6 straight AFC Championship games, have won 2 Super Bowls. Yeah, it's Patrick Mahomes, and it's not even close. Even as bad as the season that they've had, for most of the season on offense, Patrick Mahomes is still the best quarterback in the NFL. And to me, it's not even in the same realm. I think that Patrick Mahomes is on such a different level. He's that, S tier, that tier 1 guy. And then you've got a few guys in tier 2, but, most of them are in that tier 3 area. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes by far, it's not even close.
Yeah, and honestly, here's the thing. We'll give a quick preview to the running back. It's going to feel similar, but the other way. So, we're not all biased here. But this is Patrick Mahomes. He is the best quarterback in the game, and he's also the second best when he has only 1 foot. That's what we saw last year. What I want to point out real quick, just for everyone who's listening, and so maybe you have some conversation pieces around the people that you're going to be watching the game with, if it's your cousin or your roommate or something like that, just someone random. You just want to sound like you know what you're talking about because you listen to the W Sports podcast, and it's a great podcast to listen to. Patrick Mahomes this year in the playoffs. It's very similar to what he had last year in the playoffs, very similar to what he had the years before. He has a completion percentage just barely under 70% at 68%. He has 7 yards per attempt, 4 touchdowns, no turnovers on this postseason. And that's 3 games. So, I mean, the sample size is there. You'd say like, oh, he's low on the touchdown passes. They're running the ball a little bit more. So just throwing that out there. Brock Purdy here in the playoffs, 2 games, completion percentage just above 60% at 61%, 7.4 yards per attempt. Pretty good. Overall, just, a little bit better. 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and he's been sacked 3 times compared to, I didn't mention this, but Patrick Mahomes twice. This is a key thing that Patrick Mahomes has done such a good job in his career of not taking sacks, and you keep the chains moving. So a little bit right there. I'm just going to lean on Patrick Mahomes right there. He's got a full season, 17 games in his career in the postseason, which is, it's cool because then you extrapolate his stats. You don't have to. There it is. 7.7 yards per attempt with almost 5,000 yards, 39 touchdowns to just 7 picks.
Yeah. And also, Brock Purdy, you mentioned the stats. He's had 4 interceptions dropped.
That's true.
Playing out just dropped. So, there's a chance that the numbers wouldn't be as high if the Packers make the interceptions. But it's the fact that whether or not he's illustrated a game-winning touchdown or whatever, like he did against the Packers, or how he's able to bring the 49ers back in the second half, he hasn't played great. So it's another factor. If he has a half like he's had, or the first half like he's had the last 2 games, I don't know if they can overcome that against the Chiefs.
Yeah, it's going to be a tall order, and this is a quarterback-driven league. You obviously know this because you're a fan of the NFL, people. One quick note about Brock Purdy that I love this week. I texted to you. We got to share on the podcast. So Cam Newton apparently told everybody that Brock Purdy is only the 10th best player on his team, and this was his response. So good. Brock Purdy saying this. Cam might be right. I may be the 10th best player on my team, but I know that there are over 90 quarterbacks on the NFL rosters, and he ain't one. Boom! Just absolutely took and held no punches, as you said in the text message. So I'm tired of hearing Cam Newton say anything about playing quarterback because he was so bad the last 2+ years that, you know what? It's good entertainment. And good job on Brock Purdy having a little extra oomph behind that. Like, he just doesn't seem like the kind of guy that is going to do that, throw that punch, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'm all for it. Cam Newton is, insufferable to listen to when he talks about quarterbacks in the NFL. Like, oh, I could go out there and do better than you can. If that's the case, then why aren't you on a team anymore? Why did you every single time when you threw the football in New England just completely throw the ball into the ground because you couldn't get it to your receivers? Just stop. I don't care if you played in the NFL and you had a couple good years. Just stop.
Just stop. He's done. He did that. He got a Super Bowl ring, so we can at least say that.
Well, no, he didn't. He lost.
The Panthers lost. Oh, I'm
The
thinking of the
Broncos.
Seahawks when they destroyed the Broncos. That's what I was
Yeah.
picturing in my head, not the Panthers. So thank you for the correction there. All right, so let's go ahead. We're going to move on to the running back system here. So we got Christian McCaffrey and even some good, good depth there, even at the fullback position. You might throw that in here with San Francisco with Juszczyk.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Chiefs with Pacheco, CEH. I think last year this team had a little bit different depth too with McKinnon, which they just don't have this year. So give me the reason. Like, is it we're going to do a little scorecard here, like boxing style. So 10-7, it's a blowout, or is it 9-8? How close is this one actually?
I think the way that Pacheco's been running the football and as effective as he's been, I think it's probably closer to like, I mean, it's not going to be like an absolute blowout. I think it's closer than you would have thought at the beginning of the season. Probably, I think a 10-8 is a great, way to put it because said he's been super productive, especially what technically be like the last 7 weeks of the season, including the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
He's, consistently getting that 100-yard mark or close to it and just eating up the yards and running with authority. And I mean, no one's going to outdo Christian McCaffrey because he is arguably the one top 3 best players in the NFL because the guy really has everything that you want. Yeah, it's insane what he can do in the game-changing moments. Just in this, in a blink of an eye. We've seen it the last couple weeks, in the playoffs. He has all of a sudden just burst out of nowhere and busts one for 50 yards and a touchdown. And you're like, well, game completely changed on, that one play because of him. So, yeah, he is clearly the best running back in this, Super Bowl, postseason, NFL, whatever you want to say. But Pacheco has played really well. So no slide against Pacheco, but it's still clearly Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you at all. It's CMC. He's proven it. He could be, if we'll get to reasons why, 49ers win because blank or Chiefs win because blank. We'll get to that more later, but I think there's a very good chance that CMC is a massive, massive part of that conversation, even on both sides of keeping them, from winning if you're a Chiefs fan. So we'll go ahead and move on to the wide receivers, which I think should be a fun one because we are excluding tight ends on this one. I think that might change things a little bit, but we got obviously a really good leading group here for San Francisco. I mean, is it just heavy San Francisco on this one too?
Oh yeah, this one's like did the Chiefs score really in this round? Did they land a punch?
Rice,
I mean, you got Rashee Rice.
MVS, 30-yard catch.
Maybe. I mean, he has converted on a couple of them in the last couple of games. You got to give him that. But I would still take probably like the top 3-4 wide receivers on the 49ers over MVS just because the drop issues that he's had in his career. Yeah, granted, the last 2 games he's had 3 really big plays and was able to hold on to all 3 of them. But you're still talking about a guy like Jennings who came in for Debo in the Green Bay game and was absolutely essential. Made 2 huge catches on 3rd down to keep the drive going that led to the game-winning touchdown. So yeah, Debo, Ayuk are 2 of the best tandems, but I mean, there's no counting out Rashee Rice what he's done. It's kind of along the same lines with Pacheco. Those last few weeks of the season into the playoffs, Rashee Rice has really turned his game up to where they're using him in a lot of different roles. Just trying to get him the ball to make moves down the field. He's a lot faster game wise than I expected.
Mm-hmm.
I watched him during the combine. He didn't really run super fast. I was like, yeah, he's not really that breakaway guy, but when he got the ball in his hands, he makes a lot of moves. He kind of has that, not quite the same structure as Debo Samuel, but kind of the same bigger, thicker, got more speed than you think type guy. And they just want to get the ball. They want the yak yards, as you would like to say.
And so I'm going to throw this back to the quarterback. So whereas last week's episode, I said part of the reason why Brock Purdy looks as good as he does is the wide receivers, the skill positions players they have. They bring him up. Patrick Mahomes, this crop is for the receiving core outside of Rashee Rice has been really, really bad this year. And Patrick Mahomes, as great as he is, has brought them up as much as possible, despite it still being a frustrating year. So that's what I would say is it almost goes back and forth. Like the ebbs and flows of what the skill positions and the quarterback can do, they play off each other so much because both teams have great play callers. Both teams have great offensive minds to get these players in position to win. It's like, but who's leading that charge? And I think Chiefs, it's obviously Patrick Mahomes. And then you look at it for the 49ers, and it's more the skill positions and the offensive minds. So hand in hand. All right, so tight ends. Who you got? You got Travis Kelce, the future Mr. Taylor Swift.
I mean, this is probably one of the closest ones that you'll have. I mean, it's two of the top 3 tight ends in NFL. It just so happens one team has the number 1 and the other one has the number 2, number 3. So Travis Kelce, especially the postseason. I mean, we saw last week he breaks record for most receiving receptions in a single, or not in a single playoff, but playoff career, and he's on pace. I think he's 4 touchdowns away from the most touchdowns, and he's like a little under 400 yards away from receiving yards in a postseason career. So nothing against George Kittle. I love George Kittle. I love the way he plays. The both sides, the blocking, the receiving, just that intensity that he brings. But Travis Kelce is just a different animal, especially in the postseason. The guy just finds a way to catch the ball, even in a down year that he's had. This postseason that he's had has just been on an absolute tear. In the first half of that Ravens game, 7 targets for 7 catches for 101 yards and a touchdown. I mean, as great as the linebackers are for the 49ers, there's just nothing you can really do most of the time to stop Travis Kelce.
Yeah. I'm going to agree with you on that one. It is pretty tough because, like you said, even Kittle does everything really well. He's a really smart player. I think he could have a pretty big game, and we'll get to more of this here in a little bit as we talk about defenses, because there's so much that you have to game plan against if you are the Chiefs for the 49ers. And so Kittle could find himself on a really big day. I just think if someone's going to get 2 touchdowns, who is it going to be?
Yep.
I mean, if someone's going to go off for 120 yards, who's it going to be? And who's going to get 8 catches, that kind of stuff. And that's just, if that's the case, that's where we're at. That's okay. So, all right, let's go ahead. Offensive line, who are you going to give the lean towards?
This one's another close one, but it's still the Chiefs' offensive line, even without Joe Tonio, is still, or Joe Tooney. I mean, Joe Tooney being out hurts. The guy that replaced him last week, he did an admirable job. Nothing special, he did his job enough. But you got 3 really good offensive linemen on that line. Donovan Smith's been serviceable when he's been healthy. James has seemed to, Ja'Wuan James really seemed to kind of up his game a little bit the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season into the postseason. Really, the 49ers offensive line hasn't been as strong as it has been in the past, even though you do have the best, probably all-around offensive tackle in the NFL and Trent Williams on that. I'm going to give the slight edge, even without Joe Tooney, to the Chiefs, just because I feel like they've been able to protect him a little bit more. I mean, the Packers are still able – they're not known for a lot of sacks, but they were able to put a lot of pressure on Brock Purdy, and same with the Lions. They're not really – haven't been known for their pass rush this year, and they were able to put quite a bit of pressure on them, and I think that's probably going to be a lot of the same in this game.
Yeah. I almost put this as close to a toss-up. The other thing that I would lean towards, like, who's in the backfield with these offensive lines. And so for Patrick Mahomes, doesn't really get sacked very often. So that even gives you, all right, well, I mean, even if there is a weakness, he's really good against it. Brock Purdy showed that he could do that even last week. CMC, Pacheco. Pacheco's going to run to the hole, get through the hole as hard as possible. And he may only get 2 yards, but he's going to run that 2 yards pretty tough. And then CMC is so good out of the backfield. He knows spacing. I'm almost going to leave this one as a toss-up. So at the end of the day, whoever gives up the fewest penalties, fewest sack yards, I feel pretty good about. That was the better one. It's just, for me, it's really hard to toss because the Chiefs have been penalized pretty hard on that side of it. And then you'll look at, the best tackle in the game might be on the other side of the ball. So it's going to be that is going to define so much of what this game looks like. So overall, who are you giving the lean towards on the offensive side of the ball.
It's crazy as great as the 49ers offense is, and as much as I picked the Chiefs, with the few guys, I'm going to give the slightest of edge just because I don't know, if something happens and they're able to slow down Rashee Rice, will another wide receiver be able to step up and be that guy, outside of Travis Kelce for Patrick Mahomes? So I'm going to give the slightest of edge just because of the player-wise and personnel to the 49ers, just because they do have a great offense. Their offense has been, really good. CMC, like I said, he is a complete difference maker.
Mm-hmm.
And those wide receivers are, better than, a lot better than what the Chiefs have. So I think that's going to be the slight edge to them, even though Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, well, here's what's crazy. On the year, regular season, not the postseason, but regular season, 49ers offensively were number 3 in points per game. They were number 2 in total yards, 4th in passing. I mean, rush yards a game, 3rd. They were just at the top 5 in everything. Mm-hmm. The Chiefs, on the other hand, points per game, 15th. We felt that the whole year. Total yards a game, 9th. Pass yards, 6th. Rush yards, 19th. The difference between 3rd and 19th was 36 yards per game. That's a pretty big difference. 140 to 104. All that to be said, when it comes playoff time, I gotta give the edge to whoever has Patrick Mahomes right now, and so I'm gonna give the slightest of edge. Him and Andy Reid together, that's what I love. I hope it continues to work out, but that's where I'm gonna be, just the slight edge that way, only because it's Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid. They've done it before. We've seen him win. You cannot count that team out. So.
Nope, never.
All right, so let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. We have the defensive line. So we got a lot of talent at the defensive line, and they're going to be going after 2 quarterbacks who have proven to be elusive. May not be the speedsters that are out there, but they are elusive. So who you got?
This one I think is a lot closer than a lot of people think. As great as the 49ers defensive line looks, with the names Chase Young and Randy Gregory, Bosa, Armstead, Hargrave, you can just keep on throwing out the names.
Like the Eagles last year.
Yeah. The problem is they haven't been super productive this year. I mean, Chase Young, since he got traded, has 2.5 sacks. Yeah. Randy Gregory has 1 sack. Bosa's been pretty neutralized for the most part. And I mean, Chris Jones has just been absolute, monster, wrecking machine, this postseason. Losing Charles Omenihu hurts, gives them another edge rusher off the edge, the Chiefs. I'm gonna say this one's a toss-up. I think this is just because I don't think that the 49ers have lived up to the potential of what this defensive line potentially could have been. I mean, you've got 3 edge rushers on the outside, and those, Bosa, Gregory, and Chase Young, that you go, man, they should have, probably be close to leading the NFL in sacks. And Chase Young, I honestly don't know what happened to the guy. I don't know if the injuries have been just so much on him that he just doesn't have it, or if he just doesn't care. I mean, there's so many plays like in the Packers game where you're getting blocked by, wide receivers in the run game, or the Lions game when Jameson Williams is running that end around for the touchdown, and he literally runs in front of you, and you just stick your hand out. Don't even try to tackle him. Just stick your hand out, and you're walking.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just feel like you look at the names and people are like, oh yeah, no, it's not even close. I think you look at the production and what the Chiefs have been able to do with that defensive line. They may not have the most flashy names. They may not have a lot of sacks or whatever, but those guys go out there and they play hard every single play.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can say the same for the 49ers.
Yeah. Who had more sacks this year, Chase Young or Karlaftis?
Oh, I'm going to say Karlaftis.
Yeah, by 3.
Yeah.
Who was one of the other guys that you mentioned earlier?
Randy Gregory.
I
want to say he has 1.5, 2 sacks this year. I think he only has 1 since he's been. Maybe he has a few more whenever he was
total.
Yeah.
Yeah. So far in the playoffs, again, 2 games versus 3. Take that for what it's worth. Mm-hmm. 2 sacks, both from Bosa, versus on the line. That was only 2 sacks, but I'm going to take out Justin Reed's 1 sack, but 2 sacks to 5 sacks.
Yeah,
it's just a big difference. Mm-hmm. 1 game, I get it. Okay, fine, but what they've been able to do in these games is constantly bring pressure. Spagnuolo. So because of that, and more will come into play here in a second, I'm going to give a slight edge to the Chiefs. I just sound like a homer. I just sound like a straight up homer right now.
I mean, you kind of almost pushed me to agree. I mean, just because, like I said, you look at that 49ers and you go, man, just look at the names, all those names they have along there. Yeah, and they just production-wise just haven't been what they should have been. I mean, there's a reason why when you had what you had, and at trade deadline, you have to go out and you traded a third-round pick for Chase Young, and then you're like, oh, he's going to get back in there with Bosa. We saw what they could do in college, with each other, and then all of a sudden he has 2.5 sacks since he's been there, and you're like, we gave up a third-round pick for 2.5 sacks and a guy that gives no effort whatsoever. What's the point? So yeah, I changed my pick. I'm gonna say Chiefs.
Well, I'm glad I helped sway. Hopefully I help sway some other people too. Again, you got to take the quarterback into play a little bit. And again, I said that on the front end was both these quarterbacks have been very elusive. So hopefully it continues to play out that way. We could do linebackers, but I think that kind of goes into play with some of the rushing the quarterback and the edge rushers. And so linebackers is a very fluid position these days. So instead of that, we're just going to go secondary, and you can include zone coverage and all that kind of stuff with linebackers who can do that. But let's just focus on thinking secondary.
Yeah. So if we're talking secondary, and if we're throwing the linebackers in there, it kind of changes things a little bit. I don't know about a whole lot because Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner are two of the best tandem linebackers in the NFL. Fred Warner to me
for coverage, absolutely.
Yeah, Fred Warner to me is the best linebacker in football right now. He is just a different type of player. He does everything. He gets in the run game. He's one of the best linebackers in the pass game. Dre Greenlaw is a great number two. It seems like it's always every year let's go, oh, we've got a different guy alongside Fred Warner, and he's just as good as last year's guy. So it doesn't really matter. There's no drop off. But the thing is that secondary has been a little susceptible to some big plays and not being able to cover guys. Big penalties. Ambry Thomas has gotten picked on quite a bit. Dominic Lenore has been picked on quite a bit also in this postseason. And the Chiefs, you've got Nick Bolton. I don't think is Willie Gay playing, or is he still out?
He's not listed as out yet, but I don't know that he is.
Yeah, but Drew Tranquill has fit right into that spot and has played really good this postseason. And the Chiefs, you've got two all pros in that secondary with McDuffie and L'Jarius Sneed. I'm going to give it to the Chiefs again. Just because I think that secondary has shown all season, postseason, that they can shut down almost anyone. It's pretty crazy how great L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie have played, especially in the postseason. Look what they did to Stephon Diggs and what they did to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Just completely shut them down.
Yeah, I can't forget Devon Achane, right?
Oh yeah.
Him down 2 in that game. And so that's my thought here is you lean towards the Chiefs because of the all pros and that secondary being able to shut down the passing game. What they did to Zay Flowers inside that, the 1 yard line of just when to go for the ball at that point. The hardest part for me to say the Chiefs is I just think of what are they going to be covering on the other side, and it's just at least 4 overly talented players at their position. And I don't know that they have seen skilled position players this good. there's so many good things that these guys do, whether it's the route running, the play design, the concepts that they can put together, the option routes with CMC. Yeah. It is going to be so tough to do. So if I'm going to if I'm basing this purely off of which results may end up being better, it may hear me on this. It may end up looking like on paper they are the better team. This 49ers are secondary wise based off results. But here's the problem. I think give me 2 interceptions from Brock Purdy. Give me 2 picks in this game. One of those could be go for 6. I don't know. But you give me 2. And I'll bring this back. The last game that the 49ers played, it was at home. There was a really, really good team in the AFC. It was against the Ravens. Do you remember what happened in that game? Let me read you some stuff. Yeah,
picked 4 times.
Yeah, picked 4 times. But in that game, CMC ran for a touchdown over 100 yards.
Mhm.
George Kittle, 7 catches, 126. Brandon Ayuk, 6 for 113. Debo, 4 for 47. And they got throttled in this game. Turnovers. And I think which team is more likely to get those turnovers? I think it's the Chiefs secondary. I think it's the pressure that their defensive line can put on there and the scheme and concepts and the adjustments that Spagnuolo makes. So I think even in this game, he put up 8 yards an attempt, 250 yards. So on paper, it looks good, except those turnovers. And so ultimately, that's what I'm going to lean towards. The Chiefs secondary is only based off of, I think those turnovers are going to come into play. So give me the Chiefs secondary.
Yeah, this is something I was, when you were talking, I was like, yeah, I mean, you also got to look at who's throwing the football and who's played, how bad he has played, recently. These guys probably don't drop those picks like the Packers guys did. Don't drop the picks like the
Probably not.
Detroit Lions did. I mean, these guys come and they play, and as great as weapons they have, Steve Spagnuolo knows how to draw up defenses for these playoffs, and it's going to be a great chess match between him and Kyle Shanahan. I mean, two of the best play callers, on their sides of the field, defensive wise and offensive wise, and it's really going to be a great chess match. See who comes out on top, and if Purdy is off like he has been the first half, these last 2 games in the postseason, there's a chance that it could get ugly quick, like the Ravens game where he throwing picks right off the bat, and you're like, well, they're done because they can't come from behind if they're not gonna be able to give CMC the ball all the time. Granted, they were able to do it with the Lions, but the Lions aren't the Chiefs. They're not Patrick Mahomes. They're not Andy Reid. They're not Steve Spagnuolo.
And that's one of those things that I was pulling into this too, is in the X factor. And hey, who are you going to give it to? Is they weren't. Jordan Love is pretty
Yeah.
agile. I mean, he doesn't run all the time or anything like that, but he knows the pocket awareness. But they really didn't get to him, and they really didn't get to Jared Goff either. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but Jared Goff he's no Brock Purdy in the pocket. I mean, come on. So like that's I mean, X factors are going to happen. So for you, what is the biggest X factor in this game?
It's Steve Spagnuolo. It's the pressure. What he can get on Brock Purdy to cause him to throw some erratic passes, or what the blitz schemes that he's been able to come up with, like he did with the 49ers. I mean, against the Ravens, where he's bringing Drew Tranquill out of nowhere or Justin Reed out of nowhere, and putting the pressure on him. Maybe they don't get the sack. I mean, Reed ended up getting the sack on that one, but Tranquill has been really good in that blitz package the last or really all season when he's been healthy. And I think it's something that I don't know if they've seen a defense like this. As good as the Ravens defense has been all year, I don't think the Ravens defense is anywhere close to what the Chiefs is. I think the Chiefs, honestly, right now, they have one of the best top to bottom defenses in the NFL. And you may not know most of the names, but it don't matter because those guys have come out and they've played so good this year, especially in the postseason. Granted, the 180 some yards rushing, to the Bills, but really that second half, they completely shut down the run game. I just feel like Spagnuolo is going to draw up something, and it's going to be some blitz, some pressures or whatever. Maybe something different where a guy typically doesn't drop in coverage, and Purdy doesn't read it because he doesn't seem to be able to read over the middle too well if those linebackers drop back a little bit further. Something I think is going to come up because of Spagnuolo is going to draw something up that the 49ers haven't really seen all year, and we're going to see Purdy make some mistakes.
You're gonna love my X factor, and I like it because we're not doing the normal Patrick Mahomes, Chris McCaffrey. We're not doing this. I want to do Chris McCaffrey if it was just a typical, but he's not an X factor. An X factor, I think it's just that person that you're like, hey, so much will determine on 1 or 2 big plays that this person is in position or draws up. And that's what I think. I mean, talking about this right now with just specific plays. So for me, give me MBS. If so much, I don't know, and that's terrifying to say. But if he had 3 catches of the last 2 games that were absolutely pivotal to winning those games, putting those games out of reach. And I think that there can be a moment either early in this game or late in the game, one of the two, where Rashee Rice isn't open, right? Travis Kelce's double teamed and Pacheco's chip blocking someone, and so he's the check down. who else are you going to get? It's going to be MVS. So I can't believe I'm saying it, but I think he will be an X factor in this game. I'm not saying he's going to have 10 catches. I think he might get 2, maybe 3 catches, but one of those could be one of those big moment plays. And we think back to, I always remember growing up with Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl. He had that massive busted play with Reggie Wayne against the Bears. And it was like, oh my gosh. Now Reggie Wayne is pretty great, right? Like that's not the same thing, but like I'm thinking of a play like that, or it's just somehow wide open and he doesn't drop it. That's an X factor.
Yeah. I mean, that's a definite X factor that most people I don't think would say. I mean, why not? He's said in the 49ers, those outside boundary corners have been susceptible to downfield throws this offseason, this postseason. When we saw it with Green Bay, they had multiple pass interference calls where they got beat, deep, and Love finds them open. And same with the Lions game, a couple times with Reynolds, but Reynolds drops a couple of those passes, or Jameson Williams down the field. So I mean, it's not crazy to think. It seems like they have 1 or 2 plays drawn up just specifically for MVS to get downfield and go, okay, we need a big play. Let's just chunk it up and hope that he comes down with the ball.
Yeah, and the rough part is we know he's not going to get the benefit of the doubt on a pass interference call. So he's got to catch it. He's got to catch it.
Yes.
All right. So here's what we'll do predictions after this question, if you're okay with that, unless we miss something. But my question is, the 49ers win if what? And then we'll do the same thing for the Chiefs. The Chiefs win if what? And it can't be they score more points than the other team. Like that's honest, right?
Yeah. No, the 49ers win if Brock Purdy takes care of the football. And it may sound like a generic situation, but it's really what's going to happen because, like I said, he should have more interceptions this postseason than he had. And it's just those guys didn't catch the football. I don't think you're going to get that same situation with the Chiefs with those guys that they have in that secondary, because those secondary guys are, would start over pretty much every single player on both of those teams in the secondary. So I think Purdy has to keep the ball. You can't throw it away to the Chiefs. If he does, couple interceptions and it may just be one. Even if it's just one, it could come at a very pivotal time and be soul crushing for that team. Yeah, he has to have a clean game. If not, they're gonna be in trouble.
Yeah. So mine is the 49ers win if Christian McCaffrey touched the ball 25 times or more. So far in the playoffs, he's touched the ball 24 times in both games, and they almost lost. So I think if they're going to win, he's got to run the ball, 17, 18, 19 times. Probably over 20 if he's getting the ball 25 times. But I think when you look at the secondary that the Chiefs have, and you look at the pass rush, they're going to have to slow down the Chiefs somehow. And I think the biggest key is going to be who I would choose as the MVP of this last season, Christian McCaffrey. Get him the ball 25 times or more, and it's a recipe for them to win.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right. So Chiefs win if what, Tubby?
Chiefs win if Isaiah Pacheco has 100 yards.
Ooh.
And I think it's very well it could happen. That run game from the 49ers has not been good. Like I said, there's multiple times where you're seeing wide receivers block those edge rushers, and the Chiefs' offensive line is up there. When they're fully healthy, yeah, Tooney probably not playing. That hurts, but they're still one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. And Isaiah Pacheco, he has really been the catalyst for that offense. As much as we praise Patrick Mahomes and Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce, Isaiah Pacheco has been the reason why they are where they're at right now, because that offense really had no identity for 13 weeks. And then what was like the last 5 weeks of the regular season, they really started running the football where they're averaging 40 yards rushing, 135 yards rushing, and Pacheco was just churning yards after yard after yard. And that's what we've seen in this postseason. They scored 17 points last week, but it honestly never really seemed like it was like it was out of control for the Chiefs, because Pacheco may not have like the biggest numbers, but he still was able to just fall forward, and that's something that a lot of running backs aren't able to do. No matter how the play ends, Pacheco's falling forward for at least a yard or two.
Mhm.
So I think that he's going to be the biggest reason why they win is because he's able to move the ball on the ground.
Yeah. I like the theory because this is going to play into mine. So the one Super Bowl that he lost, Patrick Mahomes, do you remember what he was doing that whole time?
Running for his life.
Running for his life, throwing the ball, doing a somersault, cartwheel, and still getting the ball into Tyreek Hill's face before he dropped it. For me, it is if you can keep Patrick Mahomes clean, you'll win. If they do that, they should be fine. He was only sacked 3 times in that game against Tampa Bay, and it just felt like he was on the ground. Every single player running for his life. They had to throw the ball almost 50 times in that game. They had over 50 pass plays, but to me, that's how the Chiefs win. They do that, they'll be fine. They'll control the ball, they'll control the clock, they'll move the chains. Patrick Mahomes does not make mistakes. It's a simple plan.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a really good plan. Keep your quarterbacks clean. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
Yeah. Keep quarterback clean, run the football. You can win football games.
Look at that! Look at that! We've talked about on the W Sports Podcast for at least a year now, if not longer, probably longer.
Yeah.
No, all right, so let's go into predictions. So, Tubby, you've gone first, I think, on every single X Factor thing like that. Would you rather me go first on this one or keep this rolling?
Let you go first.
Okay. All right. So I'm picking the Chiefs to win this. You don't pick against Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo in the playoffs. That's too many things for me not to pick against. Also, I think Brock Purdy is going to have a couple turnovers. Talked about all the reasons why I'm leaning towards the Chiefs. I think this game, it's 31-17. I think it is going to be close for the most part, but I think the Chiefs should control it. That's what I want to say is 31-17. But if you came back and it was 31-27, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, no. So this postseason, I've picked against the 49ers both times, and they've won.
Mm-hmm.
But I have picked the Chiefs to win every single time, and they've won.
True.
So something has to give.
Okay.
But I'm not picking against Patrick Mahomes.
Ah, man, you're making me nervous now.
I can't. You can't. Like you said, you do not pick against Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo. We're going to see a back-to-back champion for the first time in 20-some years. Yeah. So I think that you're right there. I was saying 28-17 probably be the final score. So we're both pretty much in the same ballpark. I just feel like, I don't know if Brock Purdy's going to show up in this game. I think that defense, it's like we've been saying this year, is the Chiefs. Yeah, the offense hasn't really done much, but that defense has carried them all season.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going to be the biggest thing for him is that against a great offense, that defense is going to carry him again.
Yeah. You know what I should have said was the 49ers win if Brock Purdy makes me look like the dumbest hot person in the world and goes out, has 4 touchdowns, no picks, looks incredible. Like, I mean, I've literally set the stage for him just to tee off. Like, hey, there you go. You can tee off on me.
Yeah. Hopefully next week we're not coming back and we're talking about Brock Purdy going off and going, well, maybe I was a little wrong.
Yeah. Oh man, I hope not. I really hope not. Even if they win, I want to be like, well, it wasn't because of him, so I was right about that. Just for the record, everybody was wondering. Tubby just mentioned the picks. We're both 9-3. That's pretty stinking good. 9-3, and his only losses came, in those games, 49ers, and then there was the other one I can't remember. Tampa Bay? No, I don't remember at this point, but
I don't remember.
It was pretty good. And so either we're going to be 10-3 or 9-4. I hope we're 10-3. So should be really good. Should be a great one. And you know what? If you guys are bored and you're like, what do I fill this time with between now and the Super Bowl? Because there's only so much Super Bowl talk. You can go back and listen to any one of our sports podcasts. I think a fun one right now is to go back and listen to our preview episode for the season and just say like, all right, where are we? Were they pretty close or not? I might throw that in the description of the show just so you don't have to go digging for that one. But it was a pretty fun show. Go back and think like, what were they thinking?
I mean, one of us may
just for the record.
Do what?
Part of it was injuries, just for the record. Want to just throw that out.
And then someone may have thought someone was going to resurrect their career because of some offensive coordinator, and they now have the 3rd pick in the draft.
Yeah. Just saying.
Yeah.
It happens,
But
but it's just a fun, entertaining one to watch. And then ESPN, they put out they ranked the top Super Bowl champs all time. They ranked them 1 to 57. I think that's an interesting list. The only undefeated team in the history of the NFL. That team is it's like 23rd. It's like middle of the pack, which I thought was hard. Do you know what the number one team was?
Ooh.
Spoilers in case anyone is listening still.
Number one team. Oh man,
this was a really good team.
I
think
don't know.
the Hogs.
The what?
You remember the Hogs or whatever, the fans that had the
it's the Redskins?
Yeah.
So 80s.
Almost. 1991.
91, okay.
Yeah. This is one of the greatest teams of all time, according to the analytics. Say what you will. But 85 Bears were number 2, so you can tell your dad.
So that's where I was thinking was the 85 Bears, just because that defense was, lights out and Walter Payton.
Yeah. But what's crazy is the top 5 teams, all NFC teams. Just throwing that out there. They're all different teams too. Different teams. So blue bloods, if you will. Outside of the Washington now Commanders, they're not really a blue blood at this point. Neither the Bears. I mean, let's be honest. Bears were good for a year and a half. So
yeah, I'd say 80s Bears solid.
Yeah.
Since then, you've had a few good runs. No offense to the Bears fans, but yeah, you guys have not done much.
Yeah, 7 and 9, no, 8 and 9, something like that this year. I can't remember what it was. I can't remember with the 17 game schedule still.
Yeah, I mean they had a solid season, but
yeah,
definitely didn't have the right guy.
Yeah. Well, the good news is, so after we watch the Super Bowl, yes, we'll be breaking it down next week, and then after that, pitchers and catchers are reporting that following week. So know that baseball is just around the corner, but just because the football season may be wrapping up, coming to a close, does not mean that the football coverage will stop, because one of the best draft analysis out there, Tubby, is going to be bringing you all the content as you get ready for your team's draft. He's going to be bringing it. So if you're looking for offensive line, if you think your team needs defensive backs, if you think your team needs skill positions, he's going to have those rankings, and you can go back to last year's and see the proof. The guy knows what he's talking about. So stick with the Debbie Sports Podcast. We'll stick with you. We'll make sure that you're the most informed fan at your Super Bowl party.
Absolutely. Draft time it's my Christmas.
I was gonna say it's Christmas.
Yeah, it's my Christmas. So I'm ready. I've been scouting these guys for most of last year, just kind of building my board, as they would say.
Oh yeah,
for a little bit. So I'm ready for it. Ready for the combine come, so I can kind of maybe cross some T's, dot some I's, finish it up, and get those videos for you guys.
That's true. We'll have them all. I mean, that Tubby was watching the Senior Bowl this last week. Why would he not? Because he wasn't watching the Pro Bowl. Come on.
I watched Senior Bowl practices.
I knew it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see your thoughts on that. So maybe we'll get into that in the next couple of weeks. But we appreciate you guys sticking with us for a great NFL season as we continue on. We hope that you continue on with us. So make sure that you're subscribed to the show, you're downloading the show, you're sharing the show, whatever it is. Continue to support the podcast. We appreciate everyone for joining us today. But till then, we'll see y'all next time.
See ya.
Hit the wrong button. It's bound to happen. There we go. It froze on me. It's still hanging out with us. There we go.
It's still going.
I had to hit in stream twice. What is going on? See you.